everybody. So as we are getting down towards the end of the NHL regular season, we have some awesome playoff races going on, particularly for fourth and final playoff spots in the divisions. However, there is one race that I think is standing out now as the best, most up for grabs, and closest race for a fourth spot, and that is between the Dallas Stars and the Nashville Predators in the Central Division, where they are currently only separated by 2 points, and games in hand will certainly play a role in this divisional race or playoff race as well. So want to talk about that here a little bit, look at their remaining schedules and see, which of these two teams is really going to make it. And I think it's a complete coin flip at this point, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But before we begin, I just ask that you please subscribe and hit that thumbs up if you haven't. It helps the channel an absolute ton and is greatly appreciated. But let's take a look here at the Dallas Stars and Nashville Predators. Predators are currently in the playoff spot by 2 points with 56. Dallas is behind them in fifth at 54. However, Dallas has 2 games in hand, and those might be the difference. So if we take a look here at the remaining schedules for both the Stars and the Predators, Dallas has 7 games remaining, including tonight. Nashville only has 5 games remaining to try and hold their 2-point lead. Now, if we look at the Dallas Stars, look at this. They are on the road for every single one of their remaining games. They finished the year on a 7-game road trip. They are at Tampa Bay tonight. They play against Nashville in a head-to-head matchup on Saturday in Nashville. We're going to talk more about that game in a second because that game could be the deciding factor. They are at Florida on May 3rd. A 2-game set again in Tampa Bay on the 5th and the 7th. And then they close out their season with back-to-back games against Chicago on May 9th and 10th. We flip things over to the Nashville side. They play on Saturday against Dallas, again in that huge head-to-head matchup. Then they go at Columbus for 2 games on the 3rd and the 5th. And then they close out their season at home against a very tough Carolina Hurricanes team on the 8th and the 10th, and those are the 5 remaining games for the Nashville Predators. So, looking at this, obviously, Dallas has some very tough games in their final 7, including 3 against the Tampa Bay Lightning and 1 against the Panthers. Those are 2 teams higher than them in the standings that are definitely going to be difficult opponents. However, they do finish back-to-back against Chicago in what should be a winnable series for them. They should be able to, if they really need those games, Chicago's going to be out of it by that point. They are really going to need to pick up wins in both of those games potentially. But it's not an easy schedule for the Dallas Stars the rest of the way. Obviously, Chicago, those 2 against Chicago are, stand out as, very winnable, but the rest of their games are very, very tough matchups. The Lightning head-to-head against the Preds, who they're in this fight with, and the Panthers as well. You look over at Nashville's side of things, they have, obviously, the head-to-head matchup against Dallas. Then they have 2 very winnable games against a really bad Columbus Blue Jackets team. The Predators, if they're going to make the playoffs, need to win both of those games because they have a very tough matchup to end the season against the Carolina Hurricanes. So, you look at some very tough games here for the Preds, but then the 2 games that they absolutely should win against Columbus. I want to talk about this head-to-head matchup on Saturday because looking at these games remaining for these teams, it might come down to that Dallas versus Nashville game on Saturday as to whoever wins that game is going to end up being the team that makes the playoffs. So just let's take a look here. Dallas is 2 points behind with 54. Let's say they win 1 of the 3 against Tampa Bay. There's at 2 points. And then they get both wins against Chicago. So there's 6 more points. They would get to 60 points on the season when their season is fully done. Now, let's say Nashville wins both games against Columbus, but then loses both games against Carolina. That would also get them to 60 points on the season. And then it would come down to whoever wins the Nashville-Dallas game on Saturday, as to whoever wins that game would go to 62 points and would be able to make the playoffs, while the other team would end up going home. So if you have Nashville winning 2 of their remaining 5 games and Dallas winning 3 of their remaining 7 games, you end up with, well, that couldn't happen because someone's got to win the head-to-head matchup. But discounting that head-to-head matchup, if you have Dallas winning 3 other games and you have Nashville winning 2 other games, it would come down to that head-to-head matchup on May 1st as to who goes to the playoffs and who does not. Now, obviously, if Nashville drops a game against Columbus, that is going to really, really hurt their chances. If Nashville is able to beat Carolina in one or both of those games, that will significantly increase their chances. If Dallas drops a game to Chicago, that is going to hurt their chances. However, if they win 2 out of 3 against Tampa Bay, or if they can beat Florida, that would significantly increase their chances. So there's still a lot of different ways that this can go. And this is why I would say that I have no idea which of these 2 teams is going to make it. You really don't know which of these 2 teams is going to make it, because this race is completely up for grabs. There's only 2 points separating them, and Dallas has the 2 games in hand that they certainly could make up 2 points with. If they win both of those games in hand, they would then pass the Predators. I really think that whoever wins on Saturday is going to end up going to the playoffs. I do think it's really going to come down to pretty much whoever wins that Dallas versus Nashville matchup Saturday on May 1st. Whichever team gets the 2 points out of that game, I think is probably the one who's going to make the playoffs. If Dallas beats Nashville in that game, they make up the 2-point deficit. They wouldn't have 2 games in hand anymore. They'd only have 1 game in hand. But then they have the 2 games at the end against Chicago that are very winnable. All they would have to do is win one of those last 2 Tampa Bay games or win the Florida game, and they're in, unless Nashville does beat Carolina. Nashville, they have the 2 games in hand, or they have the 2-point lead right now. Dallas has the games in hand. They have the 2-point lead right now. If they beat Dallas head-to-head and go up by 4 points, and Dallas has 1 less game in hand because they're playing tonight against Tampa and Nashville is not playing tonight, that could be absolutely huge for the Predators in locking in that spot. Then all they pretty much have to do is take care of business against Columbus and hope that Dallas loses to the Lightning and the Panthers. But again, a lot can still happen. There's still so much that can change here. The other thing is, if Dallas wins tonight against Tampa and beat the Lightning tonight, then it would be tied in points heading into the head-to-head matchup on Saturday. Talk about a huge game on Saturday. This is a nuts race right now. I just kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit and point out how close this is. And with the remaining schedules, how close this is going to be right down to the wire. And I honestly cannot say who is going to win this. Who's going to finish in 4th and who's going to miss the playoffs. I have no idea. This is completely up for grabs for both of these teams. And I really think it might come down to May 10th. It might come down to May 10th in those last games, and whoever wins at the end of the season might be the team that gets in, and whoever loses may not. This is going to be a great race down to the wire, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. This is the best race for 4th in the NHL. It's the closest race for 4th in the NHL. And I am super excited to see how this goes the rest of the season. So that is my video on Dallas and Nashville and their playoff race for the 4th spot in the Central going on right now. Looking at their remaining schedules, and man, this is going to be really, really good. Definitely a race to watch. Along with the East Division too, I think between the 2 New York teams in Boston in the East, that's going to end up being a really good race to the finish as well. But this is the closest and most up for grabs in my opinion, and I can't wait to see how it turns out. So Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon, merchandise store, donation link, and channel memberships are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.